My name is Michael. I'm a senior in college, about to graduate, and luckily, I received a job offer before summer, so I'm working part-time at a leisurely patché while living in my parents' home. However, my mom is strict, so I anticipate she'll nag me, saying, "Michael, don't just lie around. Isn't there something you should be preparing for your new job?" To prepare for my new role in sales, I've started reading books on sales techniques, making the most of my time. As a solo traveler, I spent a few days abroad, interacting with people from various countries. I've often found my strict mom to be a hassle since I was young, but recently, I've started to feel a bit grateful for her ways. On a certain summer day, a memory always comes back to me around this season. I wonder if it was this hot on the day I met him. That day, as I left my house, planning to go to the library, these thoughts crossed my mind. Then, my attention was drawn to a fancy black car parked in front of an apartment near my home. Glancing over, I saw a man in a black suit, despite the heat, wearing a flashy shirt, standing next to the car. It appeared that he was looking my way. Why here? A gangster, probably. This apartment is old. Maybe they are planning to demolish it for a hideout. That's a bit sad and scary. The apartment, unoccupied for a long while, holds some sentimental value for me. Well, I should just leave quickly. Thinking this, I hurried away, but then I heard a man's deep voice saying, "Excuse me." With just the gangster and me around, it was clear who was speaking to whom. Why me? Wanting to run but afraid of being chased, I had no choice but to turn and respond. "Jess, what is it?" I replied, avoiding eye contact. Then, the man calmly said, "I'm looking for someone." Are they looking for someone dangerous? I haven't seen anyone like that around here. While thinking this, all I could do was listen and respond with, "I'm looking for someone named Mr. Johnson." Hearing this, I froze. Johnson, that's my family, but I have no idea why a gangster would be looking for us. Is there another Johnson family I don't know about? Unsure of what to say, my confusion was apparent. Seeing my reaction, the gangster leaned in to look at my face. Scary. But I haven't done anything wrong. As I stood frozen, he asked, "Are you Michael Johnson?" Hearing my name, my heart almost leaped out of my chest, but the gangster's eyes behind his sunglasses didn't seem too menacing, which calmed me down a bit. Then he took off his sunglasses and said, "It's me, David. David Smith. Do you remember me?" Dave. Hearing that, I was even more surprised. Because he was the very person I had been thinking about until just a moment ago. Going back 15 years, to one summer. Back then, I was a timid, quiet 7-year-old boy. I had friends, but not many. I wasn't bullied, but I would rather read books in the classroom than play in the schoolyard. So, I only saw Dave, a big, silent boy from another class, as scary. Not just me. Probably most kids at that time avoided him, thinking the same. I never thought I'd interact with him. But one day, on my way home from school, eager to show my mom the family portrait I drew in class, I was running with the drawing in hand. But I stumbled on a small stone and fell, accidentally letting go of the drawing paper. The drawing paper was swept away by the wind, crossing over the riverbank right next to me and heading towards the river. I panicked and chased after it, but couldn't make it in time, and the paper fell into the river. Fortunately, it didn't sink and was just floating on the surface of the water. I decided to go get it and stepped into the river. Just then, a loud voice called out from the riverbank, "Hey, what are you doing?" Startled, I looked up to see Dave standing there. Surprised to be addressed, I watched as Dave quickly descended the riverbank to stand beside me. After I explained the situation, Dave said, "You're short, so I'll go get it," and waded into the river. Even Dave, who I estimate is about 20 centimeters taller than me, was in water up to his knees, so it might have been quite dangerous for me. I expressed my gratitude to Dave when he safely returned with the painting. The painting was a bit waterlogged but still recognizable. After that, it turned out Dave was heading the same way home, so we walked back together for the first time. I was a bit happy to know that Dave, who doesn't stand out much, was aware of me. Simple as I am, that alone made me feel a closeness to Dave and a desire to befriend him. Though reticent, Dave didn't ignore me and answered each question I asked. "What kind of painting did you make, Dave?" I was referring to the family painting he had just picked up. Dave showed me the painting without much change in expression. It depicted a man with a beard, wearing green clothes. "Your father?" When I asked that, Dave just nodded. I was a bit surprised. In my family painting, I had drawn myself, my mom, and my dad. I had always thought family meant drawing everyone. So, I was shocked to see that Dave's painting didn't even include himself. Looking back, this was a reflection of Dave's home environment, but I was too oblivious at the time to notice. After that, Dave and I grew closer, eventually walking to and from school together. As we moved up in grades and ended up in the same class, our friendship deepened even more. The closer I got to Dave, the more I noticed him being avoided by our classmates. It seems that apart from my perception of him as big and scary, there was also an impression of him being poor and dirty. Indeed, it seemed like Dave only had about 2 outfits. That's why they were pilled and had small holes in them. Honestly, I hadn't really noticed until Dave started coming over to my house, and then my mom pointed it out. She said to Dave, "Could you lend me that t-shirt for a moment?" Dave looked puzzled by her words, but after he took off his t-shirt, my mom dressed him in one of my dad's t-shirts. She then brought out her sewing kit, and I immediately understood what she was planning to do. She was mending the holes in the t-shirt. By the time Dave was ready to leave, the t-shirt had been neatly repaired. "Look at you, even more handsome now." After Dave put on the mended t-shirt, my mom playfully patted his back and said with a beaming smile. Dave seemed really happy, and seeing that made me happy too. I later learned that Dave lived with his father in a single-parent household. His dad worked as a construction worker and left early in the morning, returning only late at night. His dad never cooked, so their meals were mostly takeout. Moreover, since Dave was usually asleep by the time his dad got home, he'd eat the takeout pizza for breakfast and have school lunch for midday. They often skipped dinner. That was their usual routine. After hearing this from Dave, my mom started making extra dinner for him every day. Growing up as an only child, I was thrilled to feel like I had a sibling, and Dave was delighted too, his eyes shining as he exclaimed, "Can I really have all this treat?" However, Mom wasn't always this kind. Gradually, she even started nagging Dave just like she did with me. "Michael, Dave, did you do your homework?" In my room, as usual, the two of us were playing video games when Mom came in and asked. "Not yet. We'll do it later," we said, reluctantly, putting off our homework. Mom said, "Don't keep putting things off. It's better to get what needs to be done out of the way first, so you can enjoy your fun times." Hearing that, I grudgingly took out my textbooks from my backpack. But Dave said, "I'll do it when I get home," and kept his eyes on the game. Then Mom stood in front of the TV like a guardian deity and said, "You won't do it when you're alone. It's quicker when you two work together. Dave, come on, get out your textbook." Intimidated by Mom's forcefulness, Dave weakly responded, "Okay," and stopped playing the game to start on his homework. This was how we spent our time, just like a real family. I always thought we would continue to spend time together like this. I guess I had always assumed it, but it was the summer when we were in 5th grade. Dave was moving away from his busy dad's place to live with his grandpa in a distant town. We all considered Dave a part of our family, but we couldn't object to the decision made by his real family. On the first day of summer vacation, I could only say goodbye to Dave, who came to bid us farewell, holding back my tears. Mom, tears streaming down her face, hugged Dave and said, "Your place is always here with us. We are always on your side, Dave. You'll be fine wherever you go. You can live strongly and kindly. I guarantee it." Dave was looking down, perhaps crying as well. Finally, I managed to say to Dave, "Make sure you come back, okay?" as I watched his tall figure walk away. Then, during winter and spring breaks, Dave came to visit, but after that, we lost touch for 15 years, leaving me completely unaware of how he was doing. Seeing Dave in front of me, I was filled with disbelief before even feeling happy. "It's great to see you're doing well," I said. Dave smiled back, his face marked with vivid scars, but it was still unmistakably him. "You too," I replied. Then he asked, "Is your mom doing well? I came today to express my gratitude to Michael's family." "Yes, she's fine. She's actually at home now, so let's go together," I suggested. I was urged to get into Dave's car and nervously settled into the luxurious vehicle, parking it nearby. Riding in Dave's car for the first time, I was struck by its urban scent, a vivid reminder of how time has passed. From there, it took just a few minutes to reach my house. Because it had been remodeled, the house's exterior looked quite different from before, which made Dave say, "That's why I didn't recognize it." As I opened the door, Mom, noticing our arrival, came out and said, "Back so soon from the library, did you forget something?" She then saw Dave standing behind me, looking surprised and pausing for a moment. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if the man behind me was indeed Dave. "It's been a long time. I'm David." Dave introduced himself, just as he had done to me. Dave introduced himself to me in the same manner. "Really, Dave? Come on in," Mom exclaimed, clearly recognizing him. It seemed that Mom had indeed realized who he was. Encouraged by Mom, we headed to the living room. There, Dave shared with us the story of his life since the day we had parted. In the city he moved to, the middle school students were much rougher than anything we could imagine here. When Dave became a middle schooler, his tall and intimidating appearance made him a target. Dave himself never had the desire to become strong or to fight, but in school, he continued to be avoided and feared, just as in elementary school. The only people who approached him were those with similar intimidating looks, involved in bad activities. Haunted by the loneliness that our separation had brought, Dave ended up hanging out with the wrong crowd, and by the time he graduated high school, he had gotten involved with the gangstar through his friends. Dave didn't dislike the world he found himself in, as it was more humane than he had imagined, but he felt hesitant to visit our family, walking an outlaw's path. "I've always been worried that I'd be a disappointment. My childhood hair was a treasure to me, and I was scared that I'd somehow tarnish what I am now. But today, I just happened to pass by and couldn't help stopping in," he said. Despite his tough appearance, Dave looked incredibly anxious and somehow smaller. The world Dave spoke of felt so far removed from my life as an ordinary college student. I had no idea what to say to him. Though we're both 22, it's clear we've walked entirely different paths to get here today. "What are you talking about?" That was Mom's voice. At her words, Dave looked up at her. "You chose your own path, right? If you believe in it, there's no need to feel guilty." Saying this, Mom tightly grasped Dave's hand. "And didn't I tell you before? No matter what happens, we are waiting for you. As long as you are you, we will always be family." Mom said this in the same gentle voice she had always used. Hearing her words, Dave, who had been looking down, began to shake his shoulders, indicating he was probably crying. Seeing this, I felt like I was about to cry too. Despite his seemingly intimidating appearance, Dave must have carried a lot of burdens alone. "Welcome back, Dave." I said this and gently placed my hand on Dave's shoulder. Despite it being 15 years since we last spent time together, the warmth between us was palpable. Then, another 5 years passed. At 27, I recently married a woman I met at work, and we are expecting a child in 6 months. We're expecting a child in 6 months. And Dave, it seems, turned his life around soon after that day, starting work as a civil construction worker, just like his father had done. He got married 2 years ago when his first child was born, and now he is blessed with a lovely 2-year-old daughter and a newborn baby, just 2 months old. Now living in the same county, we gather at my parents' house for holidays like Open and New Year's, enjoying a close family bond. Dave, in a way, is a role model for me as a father, despite his tough and intimidating appearance. He's all smiles and tenderness in front of his children. I often wonder if I'll be the same way, watching him with admiration. Mom always says, "I'm so happy to have so many grandkids. I could never have made her this happy all by myself." Absolutely. Meeting Dave definitely changed our family. To me, he's like a best friend, a brother, truly an invaluable member of our family. We may not say it out loud, but I hope Dave feels the same way about us. Our family wants to continue sharing these small joys together, turning them into great happiness. That's what I believe. I'm Jake. I'm 27 years old and in my 5th year at the company. I'm single. I work for a company that supplies parts to major corporations. At work, I'm in charge of office tasks in the sales department. I was promoted to a senior position 2 years ago. My subordinates are all contract employees, so overtime is not an option for them. The overflow inevitably becomes my responsibility. As a result, I'm always busy, and the only days I can leave work without working overtime are the first few days of the month. Otherwise, overtime is a must. There have been times, like at the end of the month or quarter, when I've had to pull all-nighters. My rental apartment is located about an hour away from the downtown office, in the suburbs. I prefer waking up to the chirping of birds rather than the noise of cars. This was a choice prioritizing living environment over convenience. Still, there are times, especially when I'm tired from work, when I wish I could get home quicker. Today, like many others, I worked late. It took me an hour to get to the nearest station. At this hour, there were few people getting official. Among the sparse crowd, I saw a couple arguing. A woman broke free from a man gripping her bag and ran away, with the man seemingly chasing after her. I guess they're full of energy, maybe having a lover's quarrel, I thought absent-mindedly as I watched. Thinking it's too much trouble to eat at this hour, I stopped by my usual supermarket and bought a discounted deli and a beer with a half-price sticker. I trudged home from the bright station square, passing the supermarket. The white lights of the street lamps along the road seemed to guide me home like runway lights. I pushed my exhausted body forward on my way home. Suddenly, I saw a woman staggering ahead with an unsteady gait. I wonder if she's drunk. I hesitated between keeping my distance and overtaking her, but she was walking quite slowly. As I got closer, the distance between us narrowed. Given the pace, I decided to overtake her. As I got closer to the woman, her appearance became clearer. She was stumbling, dragging her left foot. Her clothes were covered in mud, especially on the left side. Her hair, about shoulder length, was disheveled. It was quite an unusual sight. Moreover, on closer inspection, she was barefoot. It was increasingly bizarre. Well, that's pretty sad, but doesn't she have someone with her, like the person she was drinking with, to take care of her? Maybe I should say something. With that thought, I approached and spoke to her. "Excuse me." Before I could finish, the woman collapsed to her knees. Startled, I instinctively caught her as she fell and called out to her. Are you okay?" She seemed unconscious, but she was breathing. I couldn't move, holding her in both arms. I shouldn't move her in this situation, right? Information I'd heard somewhere flashed through my mind, leaving me unable to move. Having no other choice, I called for help. "Excuse me, is anyone there? Someone, please. We need an ambulance." Despite the late hour, residents who heard my voice came out. Everyone looked on with curious faces. Oh dear, are you okay? Is she your girlfriend? What happened?" A lady in her nightwear approached me to talk. "No, I don't know her. She was walking ahead of me, then suddenly collapsed. Could someone please call an ambulance?" A man, who seemed to be the lady's husband, said, "All right, I'll make the call," and went back inside his house. Meanwhile, the lady kept staring at me. "Aren't you the guy who always buys half-price delis at the supermarket?" Oh, yes, that's me. I bought one today too. I'm single, so." Upon closer inspection, I recognized her too. You're the cashier at the supermarket." Yes, I remember you because you always buy the half-priced ones." As I was talking to the cashier lady, I could hear the sound of a siren in the distance. It seemed like the ambulance had arrived. The ambulance stopped, and the paramedics quickly got out, assessed the woman's condition, and acted swiftly. Soon, the woman was taken into the ambulance. In the moment the paramedic asked, "Is there anyone who can accompany her?" everyone's gaze turned towards me. Me, really, I thought, but I was indeed the only one who could explain the situation. So, I got into the ambulance and ended up going to the hospital with her. At the hospital, I explained the situation to the doctor. The woman had nothing to identify her, and they asked me, but I had no idea who she was. We had no choice but to wait until she regained consciousness. According to the doctor, she was not in a life-threatening condition, but her left leg appeared to be fractured. There was no need for me to stay at the moment, but the police would be involved later, and I would be questioned again. I left my contact information and decided to go home. Since I was quite far from home, I called a taxi to return. It was a costly expense. When I got home and changed, I felt a wave of fatigue hit me. Knowing I had to go to work the next day, I heated the deli, took a shower, opened a beer, gobbled down the food, and got into bed. Just as I was about to relax in bed, the phone rang. It was the police. I explained the situation just like at the hospital, stating I didn't know the woman or her identity. They understood for the time being, but said they would contact me again later. Looking at the clock, it was past 2 a.m. What a long day. I forced my eyes shut, trying to sleep, but I could hardly get any rest. The next day, I miraculously found a seat on the train to work. I managed to get a little sleep, which was a relief. Blending into the crowd as usual, I headed to work. It was a day like any other, as if yesterday's incident never happened. It's amazing how such a significant personal event can have no impact on the world. With that thought, I arrived at the office and greeted everyone with a forced good morning. After the morning meeting, I started my usual work. Another day of the same old routine began. Or so I thought. After finishing a task, I looked around and noticed that my boss, Tom, and the section chief, Ken, were not at their desks. Did a sudden meeting start? Eventually, Tom came back. Instead of going to his own desk, he came straight to mine. Why? As I was wondering, he suddenly patted me on the shoulder. This is the shoulder pat, a sign of being fired. My heart sank in an instant. You did well. Surprisingly, Tom was smiling. Ken, who arrived later, was also looking over with a smile. Yes, what's this about? I asked tentatively, forcing a nervous smile. Tom continued with a grin. Actually, We got a call from the president of our client company, Mr. Smith. He said you helped his daughter last night. That woman was President Smith's daughter from the company, I exclaimed in my mind. No, I just called an ambulance for a woman who collapsed near my home on my way back last night. I explained briefly to Tom. This afternoon, President Smith is coming to meet our President Williams. He wants you to be there too, so please make yourself available. I'm counting on you. Yes, I understand. This situation seems to be getting more serious. What's going to happen to me? As scheduled, President Williams returned in the afternoon. Soon after, President Smith also arrived at our office. Escorted by Tom and Ken, I headed to the president's office. Excuse me, I've brought Jake from the sales department. I've been waiting. Come in. President Williams's voice came from inside the room. I started to feel nervous. Tom opened the door, and we entered the president's office. Sitting on the guest sofa, facing our President Williams, was President Smith, with a woman beside him who seemed to be his wife. Sorry to keep you waiting. This is Jake, the chief of our sales department. Nice to meet you. I am Jake, the chief of the sales department, I said. When I raised my head, President Smith and his wife stood up and came over to me. So you are Jake. I'm Smith. This is my wife. She wanted to meet you too. Thank you so much for helping our daughter yesterday. Jake, thank you very much for helping our daughter. We really appreciate it. President Smith firmly grasped my right hand with both of his and shook it vigorously. His wife showed respect, with a polite nod and smile. Let's calm down. Sit down and let's talk over some coffee. President Williams intervened, and they returned to their seats. Jake, the discussion from here on is about a private matter of President Smith, so I would like it to be off the record. Is that okay? President Williams looked at me meaningfully. Is it all right for me to be privy to such a discussion? President Smith said. I went to the police today about yesterday's incident, and they said we needed your cooperation. So I have the approval of our president here. Understood. If I can help you, I'm at your service, President Smith. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience. President Smith thanked me. Shortly after, the secretary brought in coffee. The secretary left, and I waited a bit nervously for President Smith to start talking. After taking a sip of coffee, President Smith began. Actually, my daughter, Emily, is a 21-year-old university student. Recently, she started experiencing stalking. I was shocked by this unexpected revelation. I remembered Emily's appearance from yesterday. Our home is in the suburbs, and Emily's university is in this city. Turns out, President Smith's home was quite close to mine. She is in her third year now and became busy with late returns due to being part of the festival committee. President Smith sighed and took another sip of his coffee. She hasn't been coming home for a few days. We checked with all her close friends and relatives, but she was nowhere to be found. We were about to file a missing person report with the police yesterday if she didn't return. President Smith placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. Then yesterday, we got a call from Central Hospital saying that our daughter was brought in by ambulance. We rushed to the hospital immediately. When we got there, she was asleep under anesthesia. Seeing her in bandages and in pain, I couldn't stop my tears. President Smith wiped his tears. His wife also brought a handkerchief to her eyes. After calming down, her doctor at the hospital showed us your business card, Jake, and told us you were the one who helped our daughter and brought her to the hospital. Seeing it was an employee from your company, I was surprised. I had to call your president first thing this morning to talk about you. I just had to express my gratitude in person. My daughter also wants to thank you. That's the situation, Jake. As a company and personally, I owe a debt to President Smith. I want you to help him out as much as you can. I'm asking you to. The president looked at Tom and Ken while saying, I'd like to assign Jake exclusively to this matter for a while. Can anyone in the sales department take over his current tasks? Tom and Ken exchanged glances. Tom answered. Jake's current duties involve compiling sales figures from the sales department, organizing reports, and creating monthly and quarterly sales strategy documents based on the analysis. Unfortunately, there's no one else but Jake who can handle these tasks. I see. So you both have experience with these tasks from your time as chiefs? The president asked Tom with a smile. Well, in my time, we didn't have computers. That's right. Ken was the chief until 2 years ago, so he should be more than capable. Tom, that's true, but I'm already swamped with my current role as section chief. Ken was desperate. I see. Then it's a presidential order. From today, Jake will be appointed as the chief secretary to the president. I will be his direct superior. Tom and Ken, please take over Jake's current tasks. President Williams looked at me and said, I'm sorry for the sudden change, Jake. You're free to come to the office or work from home. I'll take responsibility for your actions. Thank you in advance. Yes, I accept with gratitude. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I thought I'd manage somehow. President Williams, I'm sorry for involving our company in my family's problems. What are you saying? It's like a child doing a favor for a parent who has been kind to them. Don't worry about it. Thank you so much. President Williams and President Smith shook hands firmly. Tom and Ken stood by, looking dejected. Tom, Ken, sorry, I apologized in my mind. I became the talk of the company. The story of me saving the daughter of President Williams spread, and I was treated like a hero. This is an afterthought, but Tom and Ken, who took over my tasks, were surprised by the workload and reevaluated my abilities, leading to a significant increase in their respect for me. As the newly appointed chief secretary, a position that hadn't previously existed, I naturally had no specific duties. I used my free time to visit the daughter at the hospital. The first visit was nerve-wracking. I wasn't sure what to talk about with a young woman, especially one who's a university student. I checked the nameplate on the hospital room and knocked. This is a president's daughter. Her room was a private one. Come in, a voice replied. Excuse me, I said, entering. It was the lady's voice I heard. As I entered, I greeted. My name is Jake from Company ABC. Today, I've come to visit Miss Emily. Oh my, Emily, this is Jake, your benefactor. The lady introduced me to her. Oh no, I'm embarrassed to be seen like this. I heard Emily's voice from behind the curtain. Her voice sounded lovely. What are you saying? Come on, please sit here. The lady opened a curtain and offered me a chair. Good afternoon. I'm sorry I couldn't come to greet you sooner. I greeted her, and when I looked up, only her eyes were visible above the blanket. What's with that attitude? It's rude to him. Chided by the lady, Emily showed her face from under the blanket. Hello, Jake. I'm Emily. Thank you so much for helping me when I collapsed the other day, and I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble because of me. Emily sat up halfway in bed and greeted me. She seemed to be a well-mannered young lady. It was the first time I had a good look at Emily's face. That night, it was dark, and she was dirty, so I didn't remember her well, but in the light, she was quite a beauty with big, round eyes. Her semi-long hair was tied back in a braid, probably because she was in the hospital. This made her look like a high school student. I was so captivated by her beauty that I stared blankly. Jake, is something the matter? The lady asked, noticing my lack of reaction. No, sorry. You're just so beautiful. I couldn't help but stare. Silly me, letting my inner thoughts slip out. Oh, you're quite the charmer. The lady laughed. Thank you. Emily's face turned bright red. As for me, my mind was a complete blank. At first, the visit was like this, but thanks to the lady's consideration, we enjoyed a pleasant conversation. Emily had been scared and agitated immediately after being hospitalized, but now she seemed much calmer. My visit was allowed because she had regained her composure. During our conversation, I discovered that Emily attended my alma mater, which was a pleasant surprise and led to a lively discussion. When it was time to leave, Emily asked, "Jake, will you come again? You will visit me, won't you?" Emily's mother escorted me to the door. She said, since her hospitalization, Emily had been so withdrawn, not responding to anyone. But seeing her laugh and talk so much today was a first. Could you please visit again? Of course, Emily is my junior at university, after all. I will definitely visit again. Please take care. Later, there were several inquiries from the police. They asked if I had noticed any suspicious individuals nearby. That reminded me of the couple arguing at the station, which I mentioned to them. The couple might be related to the case, the officer said, interested in my recollection. According to the police, she dreaded being stalked on her way home, so she stayed at an internet cafe. Exhausted and feeling helpless, she decided to return home. On the train, she encountered her stalker and fled from the station, but the stalker pursued her. Panicked, she ran into a dark area and wildly dashed through a field's bushes. She eventually fell into an irrigation channel and injured herself. She also lost her bag. The irrigation channel provided a hiding spot, allowing her to ultimately escape. After hiding for a while, she thought it was safe to return home. Disoriented and in pain from her injuries, she walked aimlessly until she lost consciousness. Later, Emily's recovery went well, and she was soon able to leave the hospital for home care. Thus, the visit would be to her house. Her home means the residence of Mr. Smith, the president of the company. When I offered to visit, I was invited to dinner instead. The prospect of visiting her home felt far more daunting than going to the hospital. With determination, I went to visit. "Welcome. We have prepared dinner for you, so please stay and eat with us." The lady of the house greeted me with a smile. "Thank you for having me. I'll gladly accept your kind offer today," I replied. I was comforted by her smile. The president's house was impressively large and overwhelming. A spacious living room with hardwood floors, where I was led, seemed to be the heart of the house. Emily appeared in a wheelchair. "Jake, it's been a while," she greeted. "Emily, I'm sorry for not visiting sooner," I apologized. Emily had returned to a semi-long hairstyle. Personally, I thought it suited her age better and looked quite cute. President Smith was at home and emerged from the back. "Hi, Jake. Thanks for coming on your day official." "Oh, President Smith, thank you for inviting me to dinner today. I will take you at your word." "Well, it's my wife's cooking. Please enjoy. And, since it's a day off and we're informal, please don't call me President. It doesn't feel like a break," he requested. "Then, how should I address you?" I wondered. "Well, Dad would be," he jokingly hinted, his face turning red. "No, that's a bit much. How about Kevin?" I suggested. "Well, that seems appropriate." Kevin was looking slightly disappointed. The dinner prepared by his wife was delicious. "How do you like it? Is it to your taste?" she asked. "Everything's great. This vegetable and chicken stew is exceptional. As a single guy, my meals are pretty dismal, so I'm quite envious of you, Kevin," I complimented. "Oh, that's nice to hear. Neither my husband nor daughter ever say it's delicious." She is puffing her cheeks in mock annoyance. "The vegetables are delicious, aren't they? They're homegrown by my cousin just over there," Kevin proudly said, slightly tipsy from his beer. "I used to play at my uncle's place as a kid. It was fun." Emily is smiling too. Enjoying a meal with a smiling family made me think about the joy of family. Family is really something special. I need to find a wife soon. I blurted out, perhaps a bit drunk. Awkward silence. Emily suddenly froze at my remark. Well, Jake, let's have another drink. How about some wine I received recently? Kevin suggested. After finishing the beer he poured, he offered me more. I enjoy drinking, but didn't want to overdo it. Dad, don't drink too much. Jake has work, so let's keep it moderate, Emily cautioned. He's just happy to have someone to drink with, right, Kevin? His wife smiled at Kevin while clearing the empty plates. I had a wonderful time and decided to leave. She packed some stew in a container for me to take home. Feeling angry at the stalker who threatened this happy home, I wanted to protect their happiness. The investigation into the stalker was proving difficult, with little information and no leads to follow. Later, the police informed us that Emily's bag had been found. I accompanied Emily to the police station, where it was confirmed to be hers. According to the police, there were blood stains on the brand logo's metal part. The blood wasn't Emily's, it was likely the perpetrator's. It seemed the stalker had injured his hand. Looking at the bag, I thought, if someone got cut by this mark, it must be a deep wound. Then one day, at the entrance of my usual supermarket, I ran into the cashier lady, busy cleaning. "Oh, Jake, are you here for the half-price stickers again today?" she asked. Since that incident, I had become friendly with the cashier lady. Today's target is the croquettes. They had a potato sale last week, so there should be leftover croquettes coming out today. The cashier lady grinned and gave me a thumbs up. After chatting for a bit, I browsed through the supermarket. In the deli section, I was torn between croquettes and fried chicken. As I was deciding, I heard a tisk sound from behind and saw a man reaching for the fried chicken. Sorry. I hastily moved aside. The man, looking rather unfriendly, glanced at me, grabbed the deli, and walked away. That's when I noticed a significant scar on the back of his hand. Could that scar be from Emily's bag's clasp? I wondered. After he paid at the cashier lady's register and left, I asked her, "Did you see that man's hand injury?" "Oh, yes. I've seen him around quite often. He used to have a bandage on his hand for a while, but not today. He works as a part-time delivery guy for a food service. He's delivered here a few times," she explained. So, he could have seen inside homes during deliveries. A piece of the puzzle clicked. I felt a flicker of hope in the dark. I invited Emily to come shopping at the supermarket a few times. Moving with crutches was hard for her, but she seemed to enjoy the rare outings. Her smile was always lovely. After repeating these visits for a few days, the man with the scar finally appeared. I quickly hid and peeked out. "Emily, do you recognize that man?" She clung to my arm. "That's the manual, the stalker who's been following me," she whispered. I immediately called the police. After explaining the situation, they waited at the supermarket entrance. Emily identified him, and the police apprehended him. He was indeed the stalker. He had fallen in love with Emily at first sight during a delivery to her home. After that, it had become increasingly obsessed. At least now, Emily was safe. Having regained her freedom, Emily invited me to her school festival. It was nostalgic returning to my alma mater. When introducing me to her friends, she jokingly called me my bodyguard, and her friends spontaneously burst into a Whitney Houston song. I sent my support to these endearing juniors. They would someday experience the bittersweetness of working life. I reported the resolution of the case to President Smith and Williams. President Smith was very grateful. "Jake, you're exceptionally capable, with a strong sense of responsibility and perseverance in achieving goals. I'd love to have someone like you at our company," he praised, making me blush. Oddly, President Williams gave me a monetary gift. I decided to share it with Tom and Ken, who had covered for me at work. Later, A party was held at the Smith residence. It was a barbecue gathering for everyone involved. Throughout the event, I received many thanks from President Smith and his wife. Emily, now on her feet, was happily entertaining the guests. As the party was winding down, President Smith called me over to his table. He offered me a glass of wine, which I accepted. I've grown quite fond of you through this incident. You helped my wife and Emily. I envy your company's president for having you. I'm considering how we might work together, he said. What do you mean? I asked, puzzled. Just then, Emily came over. Dad, I brought some more drinks, she said with her bright smile. Her smile was wonderful. Seeing it made all the effort worth it. Emily, can I talk to you for a moment? What is it, Dad? She replied. President Smith called Emily over. I'll get straight to the point, Jake. I was wondering if you would marry Emily, he said. Whoa, I accidentally spat out the sake I was sipping. Emily was frozen in shock. President Smith, that's a pretty heavy joke, I managed to say. It's no joke. I wouldn't choose my daughter's partner lightly. Jake, I believe you are worthy of her. After witnessing your actions, I've come to trust you with not only Emily, but also my business someday. Emily's face turned bright red. Dad, what are you saying so suddenly? She stammered. Truthfully, I had feelings for Emily. But accepting such a proposal too quickly might seem like I was after her family's wealth. I needed to tell Emily how I had felt about her for a long time. Besides, resolving the case meant my connection with Emily might come to an end. I couldn't bear that thought. So, I half-desperately spoke to President Smith. President Smith, I'm grateful for your words. I like Emily very much so. Emily's eyes widened in surprise. However, accepting this offer too lightly would be disrespectful to Emily, as if I'm marrying her for status or wealth, I explained. President Smith stared into my eyes intensely. It almost overwhelmed me, so I downed the sake in front of me in one gulp. If Emily accepts my confession, then I will consider your offer, I said. I turned to Emily. Emily, from the moment I met you in that hospital, I fell for you. So, I'm confessing now. I'm a simple man, but I want to protect you forever. Will you go out with me? Will you give me your life to cherish? I might make you cry, but I'll never let you suffer. Please. With that, I extended my right hand to her. Closing my eyes, I waited. After what seemed an eternity, my hand was enveloped by her small, warm hand. When I opened my eyes, there was Emily, her eyes brimming with tears. She jumped into my arms. You have to take responsibility for making me feel this way. If you're okay with someone like me, please be with me forever, she said. I embraced Emily tightly. Unbeknownst to us, everyone had formed a circle around us. President Smith began clapping slowly. Soon, the entire crowd joined in applause. Enveloped in applause, I thought, what have I done? What now? I fainted. Fast forward a few years. Surrounded by well-wishers, Emily and I were at the peak of happiness. Today was our wedding day. I couldn't help but be captivated by Emily in her white wedding dress. President Smith, in tears, was being comforted by his wife. From now on, I would call them father-in-law and mother-in-law. After that party proposal, I thought I had it all figured out, but the combination of alcohol and nerves caused me to pass out. I still get teased about that to this day. But I remember every word of my confession. Emily, do you remember what I said at the party? I forgot, she teased. Really? Yes, so I want you to say it again. I'll make sure you don't make any mistakes. You remember, don't you? Haha. Emily's smile today. The most beautiful I've ever seen. Determined to keep her smiling forever, I vowed to protect Emily for the rest of my life.